Welcome to the City of Naples. I'm Heather Shields, and I have the privilege of serving as the City Arborist and Project Manager for this beautiful community. I'm tasked primarily with the management of the urban forest. However, I'm also involved in the management of the landscape and the city parks, medians, and cul-de-sacs. For those of you who may be new to the Florida Urban Forest Council in this conference, welcome. You will notice that I set my presentations up a little bit different than others, and that we're going to go on a journey through the City of Naples, as well as revisit Hurricanes Irma and Ian on that journey. As we embark on the journey, I'm going to show you just a few things that make Naples special. We will then go back in time to September of 2017 and Hurricane Irma. We will visit the city's process of cleanup and restoration, a restoration that was one planting season from completion in September of 2022 when Hurricane Ian came to visit. We will revisit the days of Hurricane Ian in the water, lots and lots of water. Of course, we will begin the restoration process all over again. These were two very different hurricanes in terms of their impact and damage. We'll review those differences, how we used our tree inventory to plan, restore, clean up our urban forest. And as we complete the journey, we will discuss what we and the City of Naples have learned from these two storms. Now grab your popcorn, sit back and relax as the City of Naples proudly presents. The City of Naples is a beautiful community located in Southwest Florida on the Gulf of Mexico. Residents and elected officials take great pride in the integration of natural and built environments that provide for an appealing lifestyle. Having a diverse and well-managed urban forest adds greatly to preserving small-town character, environmental sensitivity, and an extraordinary quality of life. The city, through its Parks and Parkways division, manages an urban forest of just over 21,000 inventoried trees, representing 142 species. Our greatest concentration of the Naples urban forest falls within our street tree program. Our street tree program provides every street with an assigned species. It can be quite beautiful when you turn down a street like 3rd Avenue North to find a canopy of mahogany trees. Other street species include coconut or royal palms, and flowering trees such as pink tababuliyas or royal poincianas. Naples also manages plantings in medians, cul-de-sacs, and of course our parks. Due to the number of trees within our urban forest, we typically prune year-round using contractors. The city typically prunes street trees in the fall and winter months, with parks in the spring, and our medians and cul-de-sacs in summer. Our staff does supplement the pruning if we have a smaller job, like a low branch over a driveway. The City of Naples prunes hardwoods, such as shady ladies or live oaks, on a 2-year cycle. Tropical flowering trees, such as royal poincianas or copper pods, are trimmed annually. Coconut palms are pruned twice a year, with other miscellaneous palms, such as date palm species, pruned annually. Naples has a standard removal program similar to what a majority of cities and counties have in place. Simply the removal of trees and palms that are dead, dying, diseased, or hazardous, to include the grinding of the stumps and surface roots to grade. There is also an exotic tree removal program where we remove Class 1 invasive exotics within our urban forest inventory and replace them with acceptable species for our area. When we began this program in January of 2020, we had 41 Class 1 invasive exotic trees on city property. We are now down to 7. The city continuously works to maintain a resilient urban forest. Naples strives to plant native species of both trees and palms. Under our annual tree fill-in program, we replant approximately 200 trees, typically within our public right-of-ways along our streets that have been lost. In recent years, we have also added to our species diversity and right tree, right place with these plantings. The City of Naples is proud to have earned the designation of Tree City USA for the past 26 consecutive years, and has received the Tree Cities of the World designation for a third consecutive year after being a member of the inaugural class. In June of 2007, the City Council approved a rewrite to the Code of Ordinances relating to the protection of city-owned trees. It was the result of about 2 years of public meetings, debates, writing, and rewriting. In the end, what we got was Chapter 38, Tree Protection. This code really has some teeth in it to allow for stronger protection of our urban forest. Through our annual urban forest plan, prepared and presented in the fall, we offer planned maintenance, management, and restoration of the urban forest in Naples so that the city can continue and further its tradition of being the green jewel of Southwest Florida. This plan assists in helping the City of Naples continue their commitment to public safety, environmental stewardship, and best practices. What our plan does not include is a crystal ball to predict the ever-threatening hurricane. On September 10th, 2017, at 3:35 p.m., Hurricane Irma made landfall on Marco Island as a Category 3 hurricane with maximum sustained winds of 115 miles per hour. A Category 3 hurricane is considered a major storm with winds ranging from 111 to 130 miles per hour. A hurricane of this strength causes significant damage to property as well as humans, pets, and livestock. They can bring about extensive flooding. Electricity and water are commonly unavailable for several days after the storm. Homes can experience major roof or siding damage. Hurricane Irma's eye wall passed directly over the city of Naples. The eye wall moved through late in the afternoon on September 10th. A wind gust of 142 miles per hour was reported at the Naples Municipal Airport. The urban forest inventory was at 19,338 plantings on August 31st, prior to Hurricane Irma's arrival on September 10th. As we assessed the damage, 1,929 trees and palms were identified as lost to Hurricane Irma. This represented a 9.82 loss to our urban forest. This loss was spread throughout the city. There were areas of concentrated damage that could be possible indications of a microburst or tornado activity within the heavy rain bands of the storm. The city had 7 species with 100% loss, and on the opposite end of the spectrum, there were 16 species with 0 loss. Many of the species that were in these extremes were limited in number in our urban forest. I personally am not in favor of looking at a single event and deciding that a species is not reliable. But on that note, what was very clear from the damage was that the street direction factored into the damage. The best example is the mahogany tree. Naples has several mahogany canopy streets that have been estimated as being planted in the 1950s. As you would expect, these trees are culls, with included bark and roots that circle and strangle. Basically, everything we have been taught over the years, these trees defy. I had a pit in my stomach wondering what these trees would look like. To my amazement, they did very well. We lost some branches and 2 trees out of about 400. Now, it's important to note these trees are on streets that run east to west. In 2011, we planted 125 mahogany trees along Creighton Road, a road that runs north and south. In Hurricane Irma, we lost 92 of these trees. The hurricane did what most drivers do on Creighton Road, hit the accelerator and cruised all the way up. In recognition of Arbor Day in 2007, the city celebrated by dedicating our newly crowned champion myrtle oak. Our greatest sentimental loss in Irma was this champion myrtle oak in our Naples preserve. When all the wind and rain cleared, Hurricane Irma left a huge mess of downed trees and vegetation debris. So now what? We have a beautiful city that looks like a hurricane and maybe some tornadoes have gone through. Naples did what any city would do. We dug in and picked a spot to start, or several spots. In the days immediately following the storm, we had a grid map of the city with each section assigned a crew that included fire, police, utilities, and debris removal. Many streets had a simple cut and push crew to clear access. Several streets took a few days to clear. One was Galleon Drive. Galleon Drive is lined with Cuban laurel trees, and for those of you who are not familiar with that species, they fall over a lot. The city does not restand trees, so all failures are removed. The only exception would be a young, newly planted tree that still has an intact root system. Slowly we got to the point of being able to assess the urban forest. During this time, my supervisor was reviewing different hurricane information when he stumbled upon the Urban Forest Strike Team. If you're not familiar with this team, I will discuss it just a bit further in this presentation. On October 30th, a 4-person team arrived in Naples. They spent a week and reviewed 5,099 trees, all hardwood street trees. When the strike team was finished, I had a map, data charts, and a written report for the work done. They were able to identify 1,839 trees in need of action. The trees were noted from completely missing to non-FEMA pruning. The city had the start of an urban forest cleanup route. With this report in hand, we were able to start prioritizing and dividing the workload. While we still had sites to review, this got us started while we continued the assessments in-house on the remaining trees and palms. It took the City of Naples a year to complete all the necessary work in the urban forest, which included tree trimming, removal, and stump grinding. In September of 2018, the City of Naples was ready for Phase 2 of Hurricane Irma urban forest work. And this was the most important phase: restoration of the lost trees and palms. It is worth noting that before Hurricane Irma hit, the city was already in the hole with almost 2,000 vacant sites. When you add up another 1,900 from a hurricane, you're looking at a really big replanting plan that will take several years and lots of money. The City Council jumped right into the task by adding an additional $200,000 to the annual tree fill-in program, bringing the total funding to $500,000. The City of Naples hosted an Arbor Day tree planting ceremony on September 10, 2018, the 1-year anniversary of Hurricane Irma. This was held at Cambier Park. The city planted a live oak tree donated by Doria's Landscaping as a symbol of our commitment to the urban forest and the restoration of the canopy lost in Hurricane Irma. This event also kicked off the Blair Foundation Tree Challenge. The Blair Foundation was created in memory of longtime Naples residents and philanthropists John and Dorothy Blair. The Blair family and the Blair Foundation have provided meaningful gifts to communities and organizations that serve to enhance the quality of life for the residents of Southwest Florida. Concerned with the amount of damage Hurricane Irma inflicted upon the city's stately trees, the Blair Foundation trustees donated $500,000 to help reforest the city and have their gift serve as a catalyst for additional donations dedicated to planting trees in the city. Under the program, city residents, businesses, and visitors could donate to replant lost trees and palms throughout the city. Their financial donation was matched dollar for dollar by the Blair Foundation. So a-planting we went. Starting with main roads and branching down into neighborhood streets, we planted and planted and planted and planted until the spring of 2022, when running the vacancy report, I realized we were 87 trees away from being finished with all the Hurricane Irma sites and the vacant sites from before Irma. 87. I never in my wildest dreams thought I would be finished. However, my excitement was short-lived, as on September 28th, 2022, Hurricane Ian came for a visit. On September 28th, 2022, at 3:05 p.m., Hurricane Ian made landfall in southwest Florida on Cayo Costa Island as a Category 4 hurricane. A Category 4 hurricane is considered a major storm with winds ranging from 130 to 156 miles per hour. A hurricane of this strength causes catastrophic damage to homes and property, as well as down power poles that have the potential to leave areas without power and uninhabitable for months. Hurricane Ian also pushed a 10 to 15 foot storm surge inland through southwest Florida. Hurricane Ian's eye wall passed north of the city of Naples. The storm surge in Naples was historic, flooding first floor apartments, covering half of Tin City, and leaving Fifth Avenue's iconic shops underwater. Fire Station Number 1 was flooded, substantially damaging the equipment in the building. The storm surge was an unbelievable sight. I will admit, before Hurricane Ian, I listened to the weather forecasters talk about surge that never happened. As I sat in my living room watching the Naples Pier camera and the water continued to rise, I became a believer in storm surge. Of course, it was not until the next day, and those that followed, that I completely understood the level of water and the damage that it caused to property. The urban forest inventory was at 21,143 plantings on September 27th, prior to Hurricane Ian's arrival. As with Hurricane Irma, we assessed the urban forest. This assessment identified 227 trees and palms that were lost to Hurricane Ian. This represented a 1.07% loss to the urban forest spread throughout the city. The city had no species with 100% loss. The two tree species with the highest percent loss were bishopwoods and Java plums, both of which are Class 1 invasive exotics. On the opposite end of the spectrum, there were 106 species with zero loss. These species included several Florida native species that had recently been added to our urban forest during recovery planting from Hurricane Irma. The urban forest in Naples factored much better in Hurricane Ian. However, remember Creighton Road? This is the street originally planted in 2011 with 125 mahoganies. In Hurricane Irma, we lost 92. Well, in Hurricane Ian, we lost another 22 of these trees, and there are several more we are monitoring closely. I will again go back to my stated opinion about not looking at a single event and deciding that a species is not reliable. However, Naples now has two events that are 5 years apart with some different characteristics, and we will be reviewing species reliability, specifically the mahogany tree and how or where we use this species. Now, 5 years after Irma and 87 trees away from complete restoration, we have another hurricane mess. Although Hurricane Ian left a much smaller mess in terms of downed trees and vegetation when you compare it to Hurricane Irma. So Naples again did what any city would do. We dug in and picked a spot to start. Of course, I did have to dig around my office for those steel-toe rubber boots that I swore I was never going to wear again. Once we had the immediate hazards addressed and contractors working in our high damage and high traffic areas, I reached out to the Urban Forest Strike Team. The team arrived in Naples on October 24th with a team of 11 people to assess all the streets and large median trees. They again spent the week and reviewed 17,747 trees. They were able to identify 1,157 trees in need of action. The trees were noted from completely missing to non-FEMA pruning, thus providing the start of an urban forest cleanup route. With significantly less tree damage, the process to clean up took us about 3 months. The city will be ready to begin replanting in the spring of 2023. Under our tree fill-in program, we will plant the remaining Hurricane Irma replacements and start the Hurricane Ian restoration. We estimate the Hurricane Ian restoration plantings should be completed in the spring of 2025. Let me circle back to the Urban Forest Strike Team for those of you who may be unfamiliar with it. The Urban Forest Strike Team was developed by state forestry agencies and the U.S. Forest Service in the southern region. The Urban Forest Strike Team provides professional recovery services to communities following hurricanes and other natural disasters. The team deploys professional urban foresters and arborists to assess tree damage using FEMA and tree risk assessment standards. The assessments help communities plan needed recovery work and document the amount of damage and cost to clean up. The team is a specially trained standalone resource using incident command structure designed as a part of the National FEMA Disaster Recovery Plan. The primary recovery activity is individual tree assessments to support a community's application for FEMA public assistance and hazard mitigation. The primary objective is to help communities retain as much viable, low-risk tree canopy as possible following a natural disaster. It can decrease response time, lower community recovery costs, and positively impact communities that face challenges coping with response and recovery. The Urban Forest Strike Team assists with the classification of damaged urban trees based on FEMA guidelines for reimbursement under public assistance during the recovery phase of a federally declared disaster. At the same time, they provide on-site individual evaluation of trees damaged during a natural disaster that pose a risk to the community. The tree inventory is the single greatest tool for an urban forest manager. From the day I took over this position, almost 16 years ago, we have always had a tree inventory. Over the years, we have changed and tweaked the information contained in it, as well as the program platform. The city also has the entire inventory reassessed about every 5 years. While I do make changes to the data as needed to account for planting and removal, the reassessment always seems to find something I missed. I open the inventory every day for things as simple as resident calls, to building permits, to developing projects and budgets. But why is it so important for storm preparedness and response? Well, a few things. The city inventory includes all trees and palms planted within the public right-of-way, parks, medians, and cul-de-sacs. All vacant sites on city property are also noted. Assessing what is present, missing, or damaged is easy to do. For example, the Urban Forest Strike Team can cruise through the assessments in the City of Naples as they have all the data right in front of them. It's just a couple of clicks for each tree, and they are able to note damage and what is missing because they know what should be present. Of course, now that you know what is missing or in need of pruning and the site location, the development of a budget and schedule for work is easy to create. The City of Naples learned during Hurricane Irma that to submit for disaster recovery funds requires a great deal of paperwork with very detailed information required. Some of the things required on the urban forest damage are species, on-street, address, caliper, height, and GPS data. These are all things that are within our tree inventory data. So when it came time to compile the information, representatives were sent to Naples to visit sites with me and gather this data. These are all things that are within our tree inventory data. I did not have to spend days driving around because one report from our tree inventory provided all the required data. It did take some back and forth to get the representatives from FEMA to understand that we were giving them all the required data in our reports. but we did get there. Even the consultant the city hired to manage our paperwork took a few days to get on board with the fact that all the data FEMA required was in our report. If the data chart was not a great reason for an inventory, you can take it one more step and provide color-coded maps showing the classifications of the damage based on FEMA guidelines for the reimbursement. Lastly, now that the cleanup has been complete and FEMA paperwork submitted, it's easy to convert to a planting plan with species and site maps. You can also note the reason for removal so you can track your restoration process. Since we're not together, I cannot ask for a show of hands for those who have a tree inventory. But let me put this out there. If you don't have a tree inventory, get one. And if you are trying to get one approved or funding for an inventory or an update, let me know if I can help. I would be happy to provide information, uses, data samples, and the like. As I had stated earlier, the residents and elected officials take great pride in the integration of the natural and built environment. They understand that having a diverse and well-managed urban forest adds greatly to the extraordinary quality of life in Naples. The need and commitment to properly manage the urban forest is known to the community, and they make funding the urban forest a priority. There is no area that the commitment to manage the urban forest and the performance of the urban forest can be seen than in the reduced loss of trees from Hurricane Irma to Hurricane Ian. In comparing the loss in Hurricane Irma and Hurricane Ian, the city went from a 10% loss to a 1% loss. While these were different storms, they were very comparable. A major influence on the reduced loss is due to our increased tree maintenance. During the budget process in 2017, city staff was supported by the City Council to make changes to the trimming cycles. The trimming cycle was increased to prune our hardwood trees every 2 years. The previous cycle was every 3 to 4. Of course, this change required an increase in funding. Of $385,000, bringing the trimming budget to $845,000. In our current budget year, to continue to maintain this adopted pruning level from 2017, our trimming budget comes in at just over $1 million. This tree management change provided for trees with less dead or declining branches, as well as better canopy form, thus leading to stronger trees. Yes, it is costly to manage an urban forest at this level, but the cost of hurricane cleanup and replanting, combined with the loss of the environmental benefits, including the temperature modification and cooling, reduction of air pollutants, energy conservation, stormwater management by reducing surface runoff, and contributions towards sustaining and improving property values, the $1 million seems like a very small number. So what have we learned? The single most important thing that I have learned is that if it is the month of September morn, and the hurricane name starts with the letter I, and the cone of probability for a hit is Southwest Florida.
It just came flying by. All right, you know what? I think I'm just going to come in here for a second.
And that just so happens to be where your house is. Run, and run far, and run fast. But seriously, we did learn a few things and have some positives emerge from all of this. We learned about the Urban Forest Strike Team. This was a great resource, as walking streets to assess trees was not an option in the weeks following a storm. The data provided also very easily converted to usable data for FEMA, cleanup, and restoration. Our data has also been shared with the University of Florida for additional analysis of urban forests and hurricanes. We learned another valuable and important application for our tree inventory. I have long been a very strong supporter of the need for municipalities to have an inventory. The hurricane is yet another reason to have an inventory to manage your urban forest. Another lesson learned, well, more of a fact able to support, is the difference that our increased pruning cycle had on the success of our urban forest weathering the storm. With 2 storms only 5 years apart, we were able to see firsthand the results of our increased pruning. Yes, the 2 hurricanes were different, but they had enough similar traits to be compared. The city reduced our loss by 1,700 trees, while also increasing our urban forest almost 3,000 trees. I like to tell people the best thing about Hurricane Irma was the new partnership with the City of Naples and the Naples Botanical Gardens. While the gardens have been here for a while, an established relationship was not. Hurricane Irma gave us a platform to develop a partnership that started over replanting and new species recommendations, but now extends well past into things like beach dune management, special events, planting projects, and climate control initiatives. The final realization was just how much of a community we are. So many of you and others in the state reached out to not only ask how the City of Naples was and if we needed anything, but also about myself and my family. That's not something you get everywhere. Let me just take a quick minute to say thank you. And please know that if the City of Naples or myself can help you, ask. I want to thank you for joining me on this journey through the City of Naples, revisiting the hurricanes, talking about restoration, cleanup, and all of the good things that come with hurricanes. Thank you again so much, and I'll see you on the other side for some questions and answers. Bye!